Her voice cut through the dim air like a quiet command, steady, low, and far too close. Hands behind your back. I didn't move at first. Not because I didn't hear her, but because the way she said it, it wasn't the voice of a cop on duty. It was softer than that, with a note hidden inside, something she hadn't meant to let slip. When I finally turned, she was there, framed in the doorway's thin slice of light. Officer's uniform neat, her hair pulled back, a touch of silver catching in the strands. She wasn't the kind of woman you just looked at. She was the kind you noticed in pieces, the way her eyes lingered too long, the curve of her mouth when she tried not to smile, the pause before she spoke again. I let the silence stretch, then smirked. Only if you hold them. It wasn't just a line. It was a dare. Her brow lifted, just barely, like she was weighing whether to step closer or send me away. But she didn't leave. Instead, she let the door close behind her with a faint click, and suddenly we were sealed into the same stillness. I should have said something else, broken the tension before it grew too heavy, but I couldn't. She carried herself like she had learned long ago how to command any room, but there was something in her shoulders, the smallest stiffness, that made me wonder if she was holding herself together more than anyone realized. She walked past me, her scent following, faint perfume laced with coffee and a hint of rain from outside. When she brushed against my arm, just slightly, my skin prickled as though the contact was louder than words. You think you're clever, she murmured, half-turned, her hand hovering near mine as if by accident. Not clever, I said. Just honest. She looked at me then, really looked. And the space between us became something alive, something neither of us had asked for but both of us kept feeding. I noticed the way her fingers tightened around the folder she was holding, knuckles pale. Then, as if she caught herself, she set it down on the table too carefully. The air smelled faintly of paper and the leather of her jacket, a grounding mix, but it did nothing to steady the pull I felt toward her. I wasn't supposed to see her this way. She was older, composed, a woman who could stop a fight with a single word. And yet, her silence was the most disarming thing I'd ever faced. I shifted closer, not enough to close the gap, just enough so that if either of us moved the wrong way, we'd brush again. She didn't back away. Her eyes flicked down to my hands, open, waiting at my sides, and for the briefest second, I thought she might actually reach. The clock on the wall ticked once, too loud in the quiet. You shouldn't say things like that, she said, softer now, almost to herself. Why not? My voice betrayed me, it wasn't teasing anymore. It was too raw, too real. Her lips parted, like she had an answer, but none came. Instead, she turned her head slightly, as if to break the spell, but her body stayed right there, near mine. I could feel the warmth of her breath, could see the hesitation in the small crease between her brows. And just as I thought she might finally let the mask slip, finally close the distance, the sound of footsteps echoed outside the door. We both froze. Her eyes snapped back to mine, wide now, unguarded. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us moved. The doorknob began to turn. The door opened, a shadow passing through, but whoever it was only glanced inside before moving on. The latch clicked shut again, leaving us in that same heavy stillness. She exhaled, quiet, measured, and stepped back, just enough that the air between us cooled. You need to be careful, she said, smoothing the sleeve of her uniform though it wasn't out of place. People talk. And people don't forget. Her words carried weight, not just warning but memory. For a second, I wondered whose voice she was echoing, an ex-husband's? A superior officer's? Or just her own, rehearsed so many times it became second nature. I wanted to ask, but I didn't. Instead, I studied the way she kept her chin lifted, even while her hand lingered on the edge of the table as if she needed something solid to ground her. I don't care what they say, I murmured before I could stop myself. Her eyes flicked up, sharp, startled. Then softer. You will. Trust me. The way she said it, low and almost tired, made my chest tighten. There was history there, something heavy she wasn't offering to share. And yet, she hadn't walked away. I caught myself staring again, at the faint line near her mouth, the kind you only get from years of holding back laughter, at the curve of her wrist as she adjusted her watch. Small things, ordinary things, but they drew me in like they were secrets I wasn't supposed to see. She noticed. I could tell by the way she cleared her throat, shifting her weight as though that might break the spell. But when she stepped past me to reach for the folder, her shoulder brushed mine, deliberate or not, I didn't care. The warmth of her body stayed long after she pulled away. You're young, she said at last, not looking at me. Is that supposed to be a flaw? Her lips curved, not quite a smile. It's a risk. The word hung there, heavier than any silence between us. A risk, for her reputation, her career, the version of herself she had spent decades building. For me? It felt less like risk and more like inevitability. I wanted to tell her that. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned just close enough to catch the faint trace of her perfume again. She noticed, her breath caught, a soft hitch that betrayed her steadiness. Her hand stilled on the folder. My eyes fell to it, long fingers, pale against the dark cover, and before I realized what I was doing, I reached out, brushing the back of her hand with mine. She didn't pull away. Not immediately. For a moment, it was as if the whole room leaned into that touch, our silence, the clock's slow tick, the muted hum of traffic outside. Just skin against skin, light as a whisper, but it felt like a vow neither of us had spoken. Finally, she drew her hand back, only far enough to break contact, but not far enough to break the bond. Her gaze lifted to mine, unguarded, and held. Neither of us said the words, but they were there in the quiet between us. This wasn't over. The clock's hands crawled forward, each second louder than it should have been. She was still close enough that I could see the faint sheen of light across her lips, the steadiness in her eyes masking the tremor just beneath. Her phone buzzed on the table. The sound was sharp, breaking the quiet like glass. She flinched, just slightly, before reaching for it. Her fingers brushed the screen, then froze. The name glowing back at her was one she didn't want me to see. She turned it over, face down, as though silence could erase what it meant. I swallowed, my pulse thudding in my throat. You don't have to hide from me. Her breath caught, half a laugh, half a warning. You don't understand. You're not supposed to be here. Not like this. Then why are you still standing this close? That did it, her eyes darted to mine, the kind of look that lingered too long, saying everything her words wouldn't. The sound of footsteps echoed in the hall. We both stiffened. The door handle rattled, once, then twice. Her hand shot out, pressing against my chest as if to steady me, or maybe to steady herself. Don't, she whispered, though I hadn't moved. The door creaked open an inch before another voice called down the hall, pulling whoever it was away. The latch clicked shut again. Her hand was still there. Flat against me. Warm. I covered it with mine, instinctively. The contact was small, but it burned hotter than any confession. You're making this harder than it has to be, she whispered. Maybe it's supposed to be hard. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she stepped closer, so close the edge of her uniform brushed my arm, so close I could feel her breath graze the line of my jaw. We didn't move. Neither of us dared. The distance left was a single heartbeat, a single tilt of the head. Her eyes fell to my mouth. Just for a second. Then she pulled back, sharp, as though the space between us had become dangerous. I almost laughed at the irony. She could face down men twice my size, but this? This was what terrified her. You don't know what you're asking for, she said, shaking her head. I know enough to know I can't stop. Her silence was louder than any argument. She clenched her jaw, then reached for the folder again, but her hand trembled. I reached too, not thinking, and our fingers collided, tangling for the briefest moment before she pulled away. But she didn't step back. She stayed right there, closer than before, her body turned toward mine as though resisting was just as impossible for her as it was for me. The air tightened around us, thick with everything unsaid, everything nearly done. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, uneven. "Your trouble." I leaned in, not quite touching, not quite brave enough. "Then stop standing so close to me." She didn't. And in that quiet, charged space, I knew neither of us could pretend anymore. The air between us had turned electric, the kind that makes every breath feel stolen. I don't know who moved first, her stepping forward or me leaning in, but suddenly we were only inches apart. Her eyes locked on mine, unblinking, as if daring me to cross the line neither of us should. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she whispered. "Then stop being this close," I shot back, my voice low, almost rough. Her lips parted, but no words followed. Instead, she lifted her hand, hesitating halfway before finally brushing a strand of hair away from her cheek. Except, her fingers lingered too long, grazing my temple, sliding back with a tenderness that burned hotter than any touch I'd ever known. The air left my chest in one sharp exhale. "Do you have any idea," she murmured, her hand still hovering by my face, "what they'd say if they saw us right now?" "Yes," I said. My pulse hammered in my throat. "And I don't care." Her breath hitched. She shook her head, but she didn't move back. Instead, she leaned against the edge of the table, and in that small surrender, the wall she'd built cracked just enough for me to see the loneliness underneath. I stepped closer, the heat of her body pulling me in like gravity. My hand found her wrist, gentle but certain, and when she didn't resist, I traced upward, slow, deliberate, until my palm rested just at the curve of her shoulder. Her eyes fluttered closed, then opened again, as if fighting herself. "You're too young," she whispered. "Too young to want you?" My voice was right at her ear now, so low I felt the tremor ripple through her. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her silence was louder than words, her body betraying the restraint her mouth kept trying to hold. My thumb brushed along her collarbone, the thin fabric of her uniform no barrier to the warmth beneath. She swayed forward, almost imperceptibly, but enough that I felt it, the surrender she didn't dare name. I leaned in, my breath grazing her skin. "Say you don't want this. Say it, and I'll stop." Her hand lifted, shaking, conflicted, and pressed against my chest. For a moment I thought she'd push me away. But instead, her fingers curled into the fabric of my shirt, holding me there. Her lips hovered near mine, so close I could taste the question lingering between us. Every nerve in my body screamed to close the distance, to finally cross the line that had been taunting us both. "Don't do this," she breathed, but her voice cracked, betraying her. "I already have," I whispered back. Her eyes fell to my mouth again. She didn't move away. And just as our lips were about to meet, the sharp knock at the door shattered everything. The knock at the door lingered like an echo, even after the hallway went quiet again. She pulled away first, sharp, decisive, but her hand trembled as she adjusted her jacket. I stayed frozen, the heat of her so near still burning on my skin. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "That can't happen again." But her voice, low, uneven, betrayed her. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed again on the table. This time she snatched it up, glancing at the screen. Her jaw tightened, eyes narrowing with something between dread and anger. "Who is it?" I asked, softer than I meant to. Her silence was an answer in itself. She pressed the phone to her chest, as if hiding it. But then, as though the weight of the secret was heavier than the risk, she said it. "My sister. She knows." The words landed like a blow. Knows what? I asked carefully, though I already feared the answer. Her gaze finally lifted, meeting mine. And in that look I saw it, the truth she hadn't intended to reveal, not tonight, maybe not ever. She overheard us. Last week. I thought. She cut herself off, pressing her lips together. She said nothing, but she's been watching. Waiting for me to slip. My pulse roared in my ears. The space that had felt hidden, secret, now felt exposed, every shadow suddenly dangerous. You should have told me, I said, stepping closer. I couldn't. Her breath shivered out. Because the moment I said it out loud, it would have made this, she gestured between us, helplessly, real. Her honesty cut sharper than any accusation. I reached for her hand, and though she tried to pull back, I caught her fingers, held them. She let out a soft gasp, half fear, half surrender. You think I'm scared of that? I asked. You should be. Her words were firm, but her grip tightened on mine, betraying her. I could feel the tremor running through her hand, the conflict tearing her in two. She stepped past me, pacing once, twice, as though movement might ground her. When she brushed by, her shoulder grazed mine, too close, deliberate or not, it left my skin aching. Do you know what they'll say? She whispered, now turned away, her back stiff, her head bowed. That I'm desperate. That you're foolish. That I should know better. I moved behind her, close enough that the heat of my chest warmed her back. Maybe we should stop caring what they say. Her body stiffened, then softened, almost leaning back against me before she caught herself. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Only the rhythm of her breathing, uneven, betraying her resolve. Finally, she turned, fast, decisive, and grabbed my shirt, pulling me just close enough that her breath broke against my mouth. This ends one way or another, she whispered. I nodded, my hand brushing along her jaw, holding her there. Then let it end the way it's supposed to. Her eyes burned into mine, no more hiding. And for the first time, she didn't step back. Her grip on my shirt didn't loosen. If anything, she pulled me closer, until there was barely a breath of space left. I shouldn't, she whispered. Then don't, I said, though my voice betrayed me, low, aching, needing her to ignore my own words. Her eyes searched mine, desperate for something, permission, absolution, an excuse to finally give in. I gave her none. Only silence. Only the truth in the way I refused to step back. The air between us was thick, each heartbeat crashing against the next. I could feel the tremor in her body, the way she held herself rigid, as though one slip would unravel years of control. My hand lifted, almost of its own will, brushing along her jaw, tracing the curve of her cheek. Her skin was warm, soft, trembling beneath my touch. She closed her eyes for the smallest second, a surrender, before opening them again, darker now, sharper. You don't know what this will cost, she breathed. Then let me pay it, I said. Her chest rose sharply, brushing against mine. The heat of her body radiated into me, drowning out everything else, the ticking clock, the risk, the memory of who might be listening. It was just us, the fragile line we'd been walking, now stretched to breaking. You'll regret it, she whispered, though her hand was already sliding up my arm, her fingers curling at my shoulder as though anchoring herself. Not once, I murmured back. Our foreheads touched, tentative, trembling, a touch so fragile it felt like the world could shatter if either of us breathed too loud. Her breath mingled with mine. Every muscle in me screamed to close the distance, to finally claim the kiss we'd been circling for too long. Then she pulled back, not away, just far enough that I saw her eyes clearly. They were wet, shining with something fierce and unguarded. I can't lose myself in you, she said. But I can't stay away either. The confession cut deeper than any kiss could have. It was raw, broken, unpolished, human. I swallowed hard, my voice low. Then don't choose. Just be here. With me. Her lips trembled, the fight still flickering in her, but her hand slid to the back of my neck, pulling me forward until the line finally broke. Our mouths met, not in fire, not in victory, but in something messy, trembling, desperate. Years of her restraint collapsed into that kiss, and every ounce of my patience dissolved with it. It wasn't neat, wasn't careful. It was everything we had been holding back, spilling out at once. When we finally broke apart, her forehead pressed to mine again, her breath unsteady, her voice barely more than a rasp. "Now you understand," she whispered. And I did. Every risk, every fear, every unspoken truth, we had crossed the point of no return. There was no going back. The room was still humming with the weight of what had just happened. Her lips lingered close to mine even after the kiss had broken, like she wasn't ready to release the moment, as if moving too quickly would undo it. Her hand stayed at the back of my neck, fingers tangled in my hair, until she finally drew back just enough to see me clearly. Her eyes searched mine, soft, uncertain, but not hiding anymore. "We can't pretend this is simple," she said, her voice quiet, almost apologetic. "I know." I brushed my thumb over her knuckles, still wrapped tight in my shirt. "But nothing worth it ever is." She let out a laugh, soft and broken at the edges, like she hadn't allowed herself the sound in a long time. Then, slowly, she rested her forehead against mine again. The tension between us was no longer about distance or restraint, it was about closeness, about letting ourselves breathe in the same rhythm at last. "I've spent half my life building walls," she whispered. "And you just walk right through them." I smiled, faint but certain. Then maybe they weren't walls. Maybe they were doors. Her eyes closed, and for the first time, she leaned into me without pulling back. I wrapped my arms around her, steady and unhurried, holding her as if I'd been waiting forever for this exact shape of closeness. The scent of her hair, the warmth of her body pressed against mine, it was grounding, human, unpolished. She wasn't a uniform anymore, or a title, or a risk. She was just a woman who had finally stopped running from herself. We stayed like that for a long while, saying nothing, letting the silence carry us. My hand traced idle circles along her back, hers found mine and laced our fingers together. It felt both fragile and unshakable, like the beginning of something real. Eventually, she pulled back just enough to look at me again. Her eyes were steady now, though damp at the edges. "People will talk," she said. "Let them," I replied. My tone was firmer than I felt, but I meant it. Her lips curved, a small, honest smile. "You're impossible." "And you're still holding my hand," I said softly. She glanced down at our joined fingers, tightening her grip instead of letting go. "I suppose I am," she murmured. Then she leaned forward, pressing a slow kiss against my forehead, a gesture so tender it undid me more than passion ever could. I closed my eyes, sinking into it, knowing this was no longer about hesitation or fear. It was about choosing. When she drew back, she didn't release me. She sat beside me, shoulder to shoulder, our hands still intertwined on the table. No words were needed. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was warm, full, alive. For the first time, we weren't fighting it. We were simply together.